Hey everyone watching, Garrick here with just another quick word of encouragement for you. And if you've been keeping up with these videos, in my last video I talked about Jesus commissioning the disciples to go out and be witnesses to all the ends of the earth before he ascended back into heaven. And I kind of want to build on that idea of us going out and being witnesses to the world around us. And I want to talk through that and build on that through a passage in 1 Corinthians that Paul is writing to the Corinthian church. And for a little bit of context surrounding the church in Corinth, Corinth was a big city at the time, a big area of trade, and with that it brought a lot of people, and with that a lot of different cultures. And pagan worship was a pretty big deal in Corinth at the time. And Paul is writing this section particularly of chapter 10, where we'll be looking, to discuss meat that was sacrificed to idols, and whether the Corinthians that were in the Corinthian church, whether they could participate in eating that meat, whether they could participate in the fellowship meals in which the meat was actually sacrificed to idols. So I want to pick up there and look at Paul's words to the Corinthian church and how he talked to them about living in a world that is a lot different and has ideals and values that are a lot different than ours, and how we maintain our Christian life in a time, in a place, in a world that has different ideas of what a life should look like. So if you have a Bible and you want to follow along, I'm going to be starting in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. So chapter 10, verse 23. I'm going to be reading through verse 25 here and then picking up a little later in the text. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify or build up. Let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Eat whatever is sold in the meat market, asking no questions for conscience sake. And one of the things that Paul is talking about here is, because a lot of times this meat that was sacrificed in the temples, in the pagan temples, was later sold in the butcher shop or in the market, where people would go to just buy any type of meat that they would eat. And Paul is writing this, and there's a lot of dispute in the Corinthian church, whether, some of them saying that, oh, you can just even go participate in the meals, eat in the pagan temple with everyone else if you're invited. And others saying, well, don't even eat the meat that comes out of the temple, right? Because it's still tainted meat. It was used in that pagan ritual or sacrifice. And Paul's kind of clearing the air about this. And what he's saying is that it's okay to eat whatever meat is sold in the temple, sold in the marketplace, because the meat itself isn't evil. The activity of eating the meat itself isn't evil. It is the ritual and the worship that is taking place in the pagan temple that is evil, that is not permissible for the Corinthian Christians to participate in. And a lot of the issue that's going on here is the Corinthian Christians were kind of treading the line. They were seeing, okay, what all can I participate in? What all can I do and still be considered a Christian? What all can I get away with? What can I focus on? What can I do to benefit myself? What things can I do that I might enjoy doing, but still maintain my Christian character? And what Paul's talking about and what he's trying to address here is that we shouldn't be focused on seeking our own benefit or seeking our own profit, but our lives should be pointing to Christ in all that we do. And I want to pick up now in verse 31, and I'll read through chapter 11, verse 1. Therefore, whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. Imitate me, just as I also imitate Christ. So as Paul's talking here, and what he's saying is that whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it to glorify God, because that's really at the core of a Christian life, at the core of somebody that is following Christ and trying to live their lives as he lived his life. We should be seeking to glorify God above all else. And this idea of participating in the pagan things, or those Corinthian Christians trying to maintain their worldly hobbies, their worldly activities, their worldly desires, and then still call themselves Christians. Paul's saying that your life isn't about you. It isn't about what you do here on this earth, but it's about how you can glorify God. And for us, right, we're not facing the issue of whether we're eating meat that came out of a temple or not, but we oftentimes face issues that look differently, but the same idea is going on, right? We're called in different directions to, work, our careers, our academics, our sports. We have these responsibilities, and these things aren't bad. They're not inherently an issue or a negative thing. But when we begin to worship them, when we begin to try to get away with doing things that contradict our Christian character, to seek a benefit, to further ourselves or further our position in this world, that's when the conflict arises, right? Our lives shouldn't be about what we can earn or build up or do here on this earth, but we should be seeking to glorify God in all that we do. And Paul is looking at the most basic things, right? Eating and drinking, things that we have to do to survive. He's saying that we can glorify God by our eating and drinking. So as we look at our lives and we look at how we can continue to be witnesses and continue to share our faith and share Christ's love with the world around us, we don't always have to be necessarily in ministry or like Billy Graham speaking to tens and hundreds of thousands of people, right? We can glorify God in the littlest of things, whether it's eating and drinking, or it's the way we talk to a cashier at the store or a waiter, whether it's the way we drive and avoiding road rage, right? I could go on and on and on about all these different examples, but we can glorify God in anything that we do. We all have different lives. We all have different tasks and responsibilities, different things that we do in our daily lives. And Paul's saying that we can glorify God in these little things. So right now, when we're in a time that maybe we're not seeing as many people as we normally do, or we're staying at home with our family, right, we can still glorify God in the little things that we do, in the way that we show love to those that are around us, or show love to those that we can reach out to through technology. Right? And our lives should imitate, right, as Paul's saying in chapter 11, verse 1, imitate me just as I also imitate Christ. That's what we should strive for, to live a life like Christ lived, a life that was full of sacrifice, full of obedience to God's plan for his life. He didn't put himself above others. He put others above himself. And we're called to that same command, to live lives not for our own gain and our own benefit, or our own enjoyment even at times, but we're called to live lives that put others before ourselves, that puts God's plan above our plans, to glorify him, and so that others can be saved, so that others can see the light of Christ through all that we do. Not just the big moments. It's oftentimes the little tiny disciplines, the little things that we do consistently, the kindness we show to others, the love that we show to others through the littlest of things, that we can glorify God, and that people can notice that difference in us, so that we can show them the light of Christ. And that's my prayer really for Cedar Grove, that we would be a light in our community, in our individual workplaces, in our individual schools, and whatever we might do, and whatever responsibilities we have, that we would be able to be a body that shows the light of Christ in all the things that we do, that glorifies God, whether it's eating, drinking, working, whatever it is, that we would be able to glorify God in all that we do.